What's going on, YouTube? It's Captain Manny with the RC Plane Addict, and today I have a special video for you. It is the first episode ever, and what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to show you how to set up the all-new NX8, the Spektrum beautiful controller that you can use for planes, for helicopters, for drones, anything that flies. I'm pretty sure it'll work for. So I've gotten this controller, I don't know, maybe a few days ago, let's just say February 26th. And it is actually a amazing machine. It can do so much, it's really unbelievable. So I'm going to show you a few things that I've learned along the way to kind of help simplify your experience with the controller, because it's definitely overwhelming. The manual's about 50 something pages long. It's very detailed, but again, you're going to get the perspective from an amateur. You're going to get the perspective from someone who has a bunch of planes but isn't exactly doing this for a living, and hopefully you get to kind of use my experience to help you with this awesome controller. Check it out. Alright guys, so here is the NX8. So what you're going to want to do is, before anything else, is when you take it out of the box, you're going to want to take all of the contents out, inspect everything, and then obviously plug it in and charge it. So in the back of your NX8, you're going to have 3 ports. You're going to have a headphone port, you're going to have a transfer or link port, and then you're going to have your micro USB. This remote is awesome because it has a micro USB, which is so adaptable to almost anything. I'm using my Samsung phone charger base plugged in that I kind of use a micro USB to plug it into, and then it charges right up. It has a little charge symbol here that turns green, and it turns off when it's fully charged. So I'm going to go ahead and fire this up, and then I'm going to show you the process for binding a brand new plane to this transmitter. Okay, so when you turn on your NX8 for the very first time, you're going to get this welcome screen. And here is where you're going to see just the basics: the plane, a running timer for how long you've had your transmitter on, almost like the miles on a car, and that's really it. So what you're going to want to do is, there's a back button and a cancel button, and you hit them at the same time, and that brings you into your model select. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new model. Now, before you do this, if you have a brand new NX8, you're going to want to register your product with SpectrumRC.com, and then you're going to want to go into your system settings and put it on Wi-Fi so it can update. And I'll show you how to do that really quickly. So there is like a scroll select button here that you push in, and then you get your function list. And then what you're going to do is just scroll down to the system setup. You're going to see the caution sign, confirm system menu access. The RF will be disabled, and yeah, that's okay. We're not bound to anything right now. And then you can go ahead and you can go all the way down to your Wi-Fi utilities. And once you have your Wi-Fi utilities open, you're going to have connect to network. And that's where you can basically check for all the networks that are available in your area, including your own. Select it, and then go ahead and then look for any updates after you have created an account with Spektrum RC. Okay, so as you can see, I already have this one here, and that's already in, so that's basically it. Okay, so now we're back in the main screen. You're going to hit these 2 buttons at the same time, and you're going to add a new model. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a model. Now, just so you know what kind of plane that I'm using, it's going to be this Flight Test Tiny Trainer, which is a scratch build that I did a while ago, and it has a modified wing. However, that's not really the big deal. The big deal is that this is a 4-channel aircraft, which is very important to know so that you can set up your remote properly. You have your throttle, you have your ailerons, there is a rudder, and there is also an elevator in the back, and those are the 4 channels on my Tiny Trainer. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to put the model type, and the model type is an airplane, and it's going to say data will be reset, and that's fine. And then I'm going to go ahead and give it a name. So really quick, this is number 5, and I'm just going to go ahead and scroll along using the scroll select to kind of pick all of my letters out. Okay. So then when you're done, you can go ahead and hit the back button here, and then you can just basically jump right back. Now, the aircraft type is going to be basically your wing. For this aircraft, it is going to be a normal wing, and it's going to be a normal tail. But just so you have the options, you can go in, and then you can have dual ailerons, you can have flaperons, one aileron, one flap, one aileron, two flaps, two ailerons, one flap, two ailerons, two flaps, elevons, elevon B. You got it. Okay, we don't need any of that. We're just going with normal for now. Same with your tail. You can have a V-tail. You can have a V-tail B, a dual elevator, dual rudder elevator, taileron, taileron B, taileron plus two rudders, taileron B plus two rudders. Yeah, there's a lot going on. Normal, normal, done. Hit the back button. Okay, now we're going to go down, and we don't really have anything else we need to do at this point but bind our aircraft. Now, to bind your aircraft, there are two different ways. You can go bind here, and then you can go down, and then you can hit bind. And there's instructions here as well, which say put the receiver into bind mode, then select bind. Or you can turn off the transmitter, old school style. You can hold down the bind button after you've put the bind plug in your receiver with a battery, and then you can turn on your transmitter, holding that bind button again until it's bound. I'm going to go ahead and use this function so I don't have to go through all those steps. I'm using a old school Spektrum receiver, and all receivers are pretty much the same. They all have this basic like one little section here for a bind plug. I have my bind plug here next to my battery, and I'm going to go ahead and put it into my receiver. Once the bind plug is in, I can go ahead and plug in everything. So for this tiny trainer, it's spec'd out to use a 2-cell, but because I have an oversized motor and a ESC that can handle it, I'm actually using a 1300 3-cell Admiral. So this is actually a powerhouse, this bad boy. So I'm going to go ahead and plug it in. Okay, so it's trying to initialize, but obviously it cannot because it still needs to be bound. So as you can see, my bind plug is in. There is a flashing light indicating that it's waiting to be bound in my receiver. Now I'm going to go ahead and look at my transmitter here, and I'm going to hit the bind button. And it's that easy. So now this model is bound to this transmitter. And I know that because I can kind of move things around. And everything looks like it's moving. Okay, so at this point, the motor is active, and I want to be very careful because I did leave my prop on, which you should obviously never do. So what I'm going to do right away is I'm going to set up my throttle cut. So first, I'm going to unplug everything here. Take out the bind plug from the receiver. We don't need that anymore. And then I'm going to go ahead and put everything back together so I can start setting up the surfaces with my remote. All right, I've gone ahead and removed my propeller from my plane so that that is safe and I don't get my hands chopped off while I'm setting this up. And what I'm going to go ahead is I'm going to go ahead and start setting up all of the features that I want my NX8 to do with this tiny trainer. So the very first thing I'm going to work on is the throttle cut. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to find where it says throttle cut in my menu, and I'm going to select that. Now it says switch is inhibit. I'm going to click on that, and then my throttle cut is always going to be on switch H. Now for you, that could be different, but this is a 2-position switch, and I find it very convenient because it's right there like a trigger. So it does that automatically as quick as I switch it on to switch H. So switch H, that's throttle off, is going to be position 1, and throttle on is going to be position 0. And that's just set automatically. So once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and hit the back button. Then I'm going to go ahead and start thinking about the time. So my timer usually for these planes is about 4 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and just take it down to 4. And what I usually like to do is the timer only runs when my stick is over 15%. So if I'm gliding in the air, it doesn't really matter because it's barely using that much power. So I like it if the timer just stops, just to give me a few extra seconds in the air. And then once I have that set, I can go ahead and hit back and back again just to check it. Yep, timer's running. And timer stops. Perfect. Okay, so the X button is going to bring back my timer to reset, and that's perfect. The next thing I'm going to want to do is I'm going to check my surfaces on my plane and make sure that they're all moving in the correct direction. So I'm going to turn my plane so it's facing away from me, like so. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start checking my surfaces. All right, so the binding worked. And now let's try it one more time. Going left, and aileron on the left goes up. Going right, and the aileron on the right goes up. So automatically this is set perfectly, which is great. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check my elevator. So when I go down, my elevator should go up, and it does not. So when I go down, my elevator goes down, and that is backwards, and that's a really big problem, especially if I'm flying. So I got to go ahead and reverse that servo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into my settings. I'm going to go to my servo setup, and then I'm just going to go over to my elevator and make sure that it's on reverse. So going to the elevator, and then I'm going to hit that button there, and then I'm just going to check one more time. So down, and now it goes up. And if I push up, it goes down. So it's perfect. It's working the way I want it to, because when I pull up on the throttle, my plane should, or excuse me, on the elevator, my plane should go up. And that means that my elevator is going up as well. Okay? So that's going up. I'm going up. If I'm going down, it's going down. Perfect. The last thing I'm going to check is my rudder to make sure it's going in the right direction. So on my throttle stick, I want to go left. And if I go left, my rudder should go left as well. And it does not. Another one that needs to be reversed. So I left the reverse settings up here. So I'm just going to scroll over to rudder and just reverse it like so. And then I'm going to check it, and now it's going in the right direction. Right, left is left, right is right. And now my servos are set in the directions that I need them to be. So I'm going to go ahead into my settings here, and I'm going to back out. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start looking at my expo and my DR. Okay, how much travel I want on my ailerons, my elevator, and my rudder. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start with my ailerons, and I'm going to select my E switch here for my aileron dual rates. So this is a 3-position switch, so I'm going to have high, I'm going to have medium, and I'm going to have low. And to do that, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to the switch on. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to go to my E switch, and I'm just going to give it a switch down. And you're going to see it automatically switched to E. Okay? And you can see it's working because as I switch, so is the positions there. So I'm going to go back, hit there, select, and then I'm going to go up to the rates. So in the 0 position, I want it to be at 100% rate, and I'm going to make sure it has 30% expo. Then I'm going to go down to my mid settings, and I'm going to make my rates maybe about 80. And I'm going to set my expo again to a standard of 30. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch my switch down to the 2 position, and I'm going to actually look at the plane and see how it's turning. So right now it's at 100% the rate. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slowly start bringing it down below 80 and just watch it. Now, usually your planes have specs telling you how much travel should be on your ailerons, your elevons, and your rudder. I have a pretty good eye for it, and I kind of just eyeball it as I do these things. So that's 80%. And as you can see, as I go down, they actually start coming closer to the center, which means they're closing up. So I'm going to leave this at 60 for my low rates. So that's 60. And then what you could do is you can check your rates. So what I'll do is I'll hold all the way over, and then I'll just start going through the switches. So that is 100%. That's 80%. And that's 60%. And that looks pretty good to me. Okay. So that's how you set your dual rates for your ailerons, and you're going to do the same process for your elevator and your rudder. All right, so the very last thing you probably want to check is your throttle, and make sure that, of course, the motor is spinning in the correct direction. So once again, just like with the servos, you're going to check it, so make sure your throttle cut is off. All right, and it is. And then I'm going to go ahead and kind of just flip my plane around here so we can see the motor. Now, for those of you who do not know the proper direction a motor should be spinning, it should be going counterclockwise. So if the plane is facing you in this direction, it's going to want to spin here this way. So if I put my finger on here, I should feel friction as the motor turns against me. So yeah, that is perfect. That motor is definitely spinning counterclockwise. I can feel it with my finger as it's spinning in this direction. And you can see it kind of also spinning as well. And what you hear, that clicking in my NX8, is actually the timer being initialized and stopped as we had set it. And everything looks great there. Of course, with any new setup, you probably would want to make sure that your throttle is calibrated. And that's a very easy process to do. All you have to do is, for most ESCs, you just kind of unplug your plane, make sure there is no propeller on. And then what you're going to want to do is take your NX8 and put it all the way on full. Okay, and what's going to happen is this is going to actually calibrate the ESC so that it knows the full range of your transmitter from stop all the way up to max. So I'm going to go ahead and, again, like I said, set it all the way up. I'm going to plug it in, and what you're going to hear are a series of tones. And then I'm going to drop my throttle right down. And that's it. And now my ESC has been calibrated with my NX8 for its full throttle settings. All right, so the very, very last thing that we want to do is we want to set up the switches to have speech. So this is a very fancy controller. You would expect it to do fancy things. However, this thing has a lot of speech functions. So let's just take a look at what it has here. We're going to go back into our menu here, and I'm going to scroll down to the audio events. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to switch changes. So I'm going to add a new sound event. And what I want to do is I want to know when the throttle cut is on and when it's off. So I'm going to go to my switch, and I'm going to go to my throttle cut switch, which is on the G. And I'm just going to switch it. And it's going to, excuse me, it's on the H. I apologize. And there you go. So now it's on the H, okay? So for the 0 position, which is what it's in right now, that's going to be the throttle cut is off. So what I'm going to do here is, before I even get into this, I just want you to know that there is so much in here. Like, this thing could probably speak the entire dictionary the way they have it, and it's really just overwhelming. So to save you some time, what I suggest you do before you even get into this step is go back to the very start here. And what you're going to do is you're going to get into your system setup, and you're going to scroll all the way down to your sound utilities. Now, in your sound utilities section, you can add and you can delete or edit categories. And what I've done is I went ahead and I added a category with my name on it. So there it is, Manny. So with this, I can go ahead and I can add all of the sounds that I feel like I'm going to be using for my planes, like gear, gear up, throttle cut off, maybe gyro off, those types of things, and just like get rid of all of the rest of it. And to add, it's really easy. All you have to do is go to Once you've added your category, you're going to go to add sound to category, and then you just pick what you want, and you can go ahead and scroll through and find them and then just click in. One click, you don't have to like do anything, and unfortunately it won't give you a check mark note letting you know that it's there. And if you keep clicking it and you go back to your, I guess, your category, so like for example, if I wanted to remove sounds from my categories, I could see everything that I put in here. So my list is way shorter than the main list, and this is just what I put in here, like spoilers, normal mode, flapper on, gyro, cut, throttle cut, gear up, gear down, flaps, take off flaps, landing flaps, stabilization mode, and beginner mode for like if you have a gyro in your plane. And that just makes it so much easier for assigning my switches sounds. So I'm gonna go right back out, and I'm going to go back to my audio events, switch changes, and I'm going to go back to that switch change, which I haven't really assigned anything yet. So I'm going to go to where it says silence on the position, and then as you can see, my category is already selected for me, and it's so much of a shorter list. Okay, so if you need to find your category, again, you can just kind of go into your categories, find the one with your name on it, and then go ahead and play with that. So we are looking for throttle. So throttle cut off is position 0, and throttle cut is going to be position 1. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to go to throttle cut, and now I can check that.
Throttle cut. Throttle cut off.
Perfect. So that works. I don't really have any other switches that I want to assign sounds to. Sometimes, you know, you can say like high, low, mid. But again, like I feel if this thing is talking to you like just too much, it almost becomes annoying. Some people like it. There's no really reason for me to have much more than that on my remote. And now I'm pretty much all set. So this plane is bound to my NX8. I have sound on my throttle cut, so I know if it's on or off. And I can also change the volume here so that it's louder for me. So I'm going to go ahead and make it like an 80, 85.
Volume 80. Throttle cut. Throttle cut off.
Perfect. All right, so we are good to go there. Anyways, there it is. So those are like the really basic functions for binding and setting up your NX8 to your plane. And this is nothing more than a 4-channel. It doesn't really have flaps or gear or gyro. It's just super basic, super easy, and you can always expand on these functions as you dive more into this controller. And that's about it. So if you like this video, please smash the like button, subscribe, tell your friends about it, and if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below and I will try to get to them as soon as possible. Have a great time, and thanks for watching.